Hey there, folks. Here we are again with another horsemanship session. My name is Cynthia. I'm a somatic educator for horses and riders, and I teach my own special approach to horses that I call a somatic approach to horsemanship, which is all about building connection and becoming more embodied so that we can become the ideal partner, dancer, and rider that our horses dream of getting matched up with. We like to think so. Today, I am excited to get to work with Ant again, and it looks like he's brought a different horse to join us today. So, Ant, why don't you introduce yourself and your horse and tell me what it is that you are wanting help with.
Okay, and thank you again. As Alyssa mentioned a couple of days ago, I was in the arena with Mystery, working on mounting block and stopping cues and procedures, getting a little more predictable behavior out of that. It's turned out to be mostly on me to know what to do, not so much really try and teach the horse anything. In this case, this is Mickey. He's a 20-year-old Tennessee walking horse. Born just a few miles from here up on the Big Flats, spent almost his entire life here at Dunrovin Ranch. He is a terrifically talented horse. He can side pass, he can open and close gates. He's an all-pro playing soccer in the arena out here. He can crossfire when you want him to. And in this herd of fine Tennessee walkers, he can outwalk them all. He is a somewhat headstrong horse. He has been around a long time and had a lot of people on him. There have been people who took a special interest in him and took him around where he was an award-winning show horse at times. But he's also learned to put things over. He's the dominant gelding in the herd, so he makes his way through the herd and pasture as he chooses. He's also pretty good at deciding when he wants to do something, whether his rider wants him to or not. So working on the idea that if you can't get your conversation squared away here on the ground, whether in the round pen or over in the arena, it's not going to suddenly fix itself out on the trail. What I was hoping Alyssa would work with me on today is getting Mickey working the way we'd like to see in the round pen. You'll see probably when we get started that you can certainly get him in motion. That is never a problem. And I should say, among his many other traits is that his running walk is a thing to see. When he goes up pretty fast into his gates, and he can run and walk faster than most horses can trot. But here in the round pen, he tends to be a little bit, I don't want to say lazy exactly, but he's a hard boy to get kind of moving up and down. He's an easy one to stop, but harder to get him going and, get more or less energy as you want to see it. So that's kind of the background here. And I might point out that Mickey is probably going to end up being mine along with Mystery once Suzanne and I have time to kind of sit down and work out the details. So I have a particular personal interest in getting this conversation straightened away. So Alyssa, I have a few things here. I don't know if you use any of these things or not, but we got a straight whip. We got a whip with a flag on the end. You want me to bring any of that in there or just go myself?
The I don't know, whatever tools you usually use. Something short and something long would be handy.
Okay. Actually, this is probably the medium one. So we'll start with this one. All right, brother, let me in there.
Just on it, you may as well. Grab this. That's good.
Sorry, you were breaking up there. What was that?
Forget it. Just go ahead into the ring.
Okay. All right, Captain, Lieutenant, you stay out there.
I love that we have a peanut gallery. That's so much fun.
All right, brother. Come on the rail. Let's go. On the rail. Go on. Go on. Move. Come on. Go. Come on now. Come on, let's move it. Come on.
Okay, how's our audio now?
Good.
Okay, great. So I see he is off like a rocket. Excellent downward transition.
All right, come on now. Come on, other way. Come on, turn around. Come on, move. Come on, come on. Yeah, there we go. Come on, brother. Move it out. Yeah, I was just riding him this morning down on the river, across the river a couple times, and it was a great ride. I think he might just be kind of a little bit bored in here. But...
Quite possibly. It's a challenge to make a round pen that the horse is familiar with in their own home environment interesting.
Well, and his stall is right over. His stall is 10 feet away, right over there. It's like, this is his front yard. Come on, buddy. Let's go.
The front yard itself is not going to change. What's going to change is what's happening inside, and that's what's going to change how he responds. So before I start changing you, why don't you show me a little bit more of what you guys usually do?
All right. We try, as instructed by Suzanne, to stand right here and just use our energy, preferably without a whole lot of this, to move him up and down. More or less, fire on him, make him go. On the other hand, with Mickey, who is headstrong and has seen everything there is to see and knows every trick there is to conserve energy, Suzanne once told me, you do whatever you have to get him going. And I once broke one of these things wailing on the ground to get him up into a run. So I can do that again if you want, but that's probably what it's going to take unless you have some. All right, come on now, let's go. Move it out. Move it out. Come on, let's go. Make me chase you around the ring. Come on.
You know what, Aunt? That is enough. I see how it is. And I think I know the problem, or at least I know a few possible things I can help you change to start giving you solutions to this. This is one of the more challenging situations. A horse who has a lot of go is generally pretty easy to train because you can shape their movement if they're willing to move. A horse like this is much, much more challenging. Luckily for you, I have a horse who was like this times 10, and I had to figure him out. And it's that horse that I give credit to me being the trainer that I am today, because without him teaching me some of this stuff, I would not know it and be able to share it. So the one more thing just to chat about before we jump into the movement part, and that is what is the goal of doing round pen work with this horse for you? Like, what's the outcome you're doing it for?
There are two things, I think, but they're probably all related. One of the good things that happens after a better session here in the round pen is that horses tend to hook on pretty strong. Mystery, for instance, is a dream in here, forward, backward, up and down, and afterwards he'll follow me for 100 yards if we go someplace. I'd like to have that kind of attention from Mickey so that when we go out into the world, it's not that he's thinking his own thoughts so much, that we're more that single unit kind of idea, that we're paying attention to each other and we're, taking care of our business out there, taking care of each other. So part of it is to get him to simply pay more attention to what I'm doing. So he's not looking over the panels. He's not kind of just dawdling around waiting for it to be over, but that we're doing that together. And of course, then part of it is also just that I want him to be more responsive to the degree I can to what I am thinking once we're in a different setting. So that in here, it's very controlled and only a few things that we're trying to do. And I want him to be with me, not just kind of around me.
Got it. So what I'm hearing is you want to be more connected and you want him to be more responsive. Yep.
And I don't want to have to do all the work. I want him to be a willing partner.
Right, because watching you guys already, I mean, you must be exhausted, and he's just been ambling around. So we need to flip that around so that you can relax in the middle and he can do more of the work. Because of the two of you, horse and human, the horse is the stronger, more athletic partner in this partnership, no matter who it is, you know. So we're gonna see if we can bring out his inner horse and do that. But I'd like to do a couple just of exploratory things to see what he thinks about it. Because again, my whole approach is that I want to ask the horse and kind of diagnose and let the horse give us feedback about what he thinks about things and where he's at mentally, so that we can work from there. Because I really am interested in doing this horse training stuff in such a way that it really gives the horse a voice, so that they can engage and participate, and that they kind of feel listened to by this other party that's supposed to be their partner in this adventure of life. And that, for me, that's one of the reasons I'm interested in this Dancing with Horses stuff and working with Joanna Mundell-Shaw as well, is because that's another way that we can kind of learn to work with horses and be with horses, that it's different from our usual training approach, but can achieve some of the same skill sets and increases in connection. So the first thing I'd like you to do, and if we could zoom the camera out so I can see more of the round pen, that would be great, is turn your back. So kind of stand just the way you're standing, but face the other way. So turn your back to the horse. And I just want to watch and see what he does as we adjust you a little bit. And now walk across, like just walk forward, Ant, toward the fence, and just go lean on the fence somewhere, not at him. Yeah. Super. Now give him the flag, and he's going to round pen you. I'm glad that was a joke. But he's now in the middle. And so what happened is, as soon as you turned and walked away, he noticed, and he's now following you. So that tells us that he was not paying attention to you before. And it also tells us that he's not trying to get away or choosing not to participate. So those are not the underlying reasons for him being slow or non-responsive. So I'm actually feeling a decent amount of connection here, which is really nice. And I'm glad to see you walking, because that is actually the next thing I was going to ask you to do, was walk and keep walking, even if he doesn't follow you. Because the way he follows you and whether he follows you or not tells us a lot about where he's at. So he's watching you, he's still paying attention. He may have just realized as you completed this lap that, okay, yeah, we're in a round pen and that's the circle. So maybe if I just stand here, Ant will rise back to my side and I can conserve that energy. So you can stop walking now, Ant, and just hang out there. He's going to approach you and just let him come to you, but don't do anything. Beautiful. Now this is interesting, because this distance where he is standing is what I would consider the almost textbook example of a horse who's waiting politely outside of your personal space and not crowding you at all. And horses are incredibly sensitive to visual cues and space and distances.
Did you hear that? Huh? Did you hear that?
So when he had stopped out there, he was exactly out of range of your flag. And
yes, you were.
Most of his training tools are that length, which is usually between 3 and 4 feet, is that is about the size of the average human personal space that we carry around with us or that we need to be safe. And that distance, that specific distance, is important, because if the horse is any closer than that, they can reach you with their nose or with one of their legs if something were to happen. When they're outside of that zone that I call the polite space zone or distance, they have to actually walk inside like he did and is now in the inside of the space with you, and that's fine. They're both equally good distances and spaces to share with a horse. They just have different applications.
Yeah, Mickey is not above pushing on people. he tends to be a little pushy, not just with the other horses, but he'll come up and try to lean on you if you let him. So I always make him move when he does that so that we don't get some bad habits. But this is very polite here. I have no problem with him here at all.
So I think it would be a good idea, since he has kind of set up this situation where he's now right there inside your shared close space, that we can start to work on him noticing and being more responsive right here in this spot. And what I want to do is in many ways going to seem similar to what you already do and know how to do about changing the space between you and a horse, but there are some really important details that are going to be different. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and I don't want you to do it quite yet, let me explain a little bit, is you're going to start occupying your space in a larger way, using your body, your personal energy, and that flag to create a larger space around you. But you're not going to tell him to get out of it. We're going to let him decide if he wants to stay in your space that you're suddenly going to be using, or if he wants to back away and let you do your funny little dance or whatever it is you're going to do in your own space. What makes this really different from just sending him out of your space is the personal kind of intention of you telling him what to do. So the way you described him as he's the dominant gelding in the herd, he's used to thinking his own thoughts and making his own decisions, tells me that if you tell him what to do and he doesn't agree, then he may argue with you. And we don't want to go there, because as soon as you enter into an argument with a horse, now it becomes about the stamina to stay in it, who can last longer, who is bigger, who can hold the ground more, who can use more pressure. And none of those things are particularly useful in building connection or building responsiveness, which are two really important things that we want to improve today. So what I'd like you to do is kind of take a moment to plan what you're going to do. And then I want you to vigorously start using your space. And it's okay if, as you move your arms and your stick and your legs around, if that bumps into the horse. But what I'd like you to do is start doing that kind of away from him, just so he can see you start to do it, so he has a chance to either get out of your way or stand there and see what your bump is going to feel like. But you're not trying to bump him. It's just going to happen because, I don't know if you're ever been like in a dance club doing that kind of dancing. But you can imagine, even if you haven't had the experience, there are some dancers who they always have a little clear space around them, a crowded dance floor, because they dance so vigorously and they kind of throw their elbows around. And everyone can just see by looking at them that that dancer needs a little more space. And that would be the correct thing to do, is give that dancer more space. It's not personal. It doesn't usually change whether you like or don't like that person. It's just logical. Like, that person moves a lot, I'm going to give them a little more space. So that's kind of the feel or the vibe I want you to have, rather than making it about you and him getting out of your space. Does that make sense?
It does. All right.
Okay. Sure. And that's enough. I just need you to do whatever it is you're going to do, like twice, and then stop. And then go all the way back into neutral. So you had an idea, you did your idea, and now in this pause is when we get the feedback and we can read what the horse thought about your idea. So what did he think?
He thinks he needs another 8 inches.
He didn't seem terribly impressed. He thought it was sort of interesting at first, but he didn't really do much, right?
No.
Interestingly, you kind of spun around in a small cylinder shape, and that's about as much space as he gave you when he decided to step back. So I have 2 suggestions. One would be use all of your space, as much of it as you can reach, and do it a little bit more vigorously. But you're still just going to do, like 2 or 3 big moves and then come back to neutral, and we're going to read the result.
All right, here we go, brother.
1, 2, 3, and assess. So you're more like 5. And I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but you also traveled across the ground as you did that. And the problem with traveling across the ground as you do that is you're sort of setting up a boundary or a visual shape for him to see when you do this with your body. But if you move the center of the space, you're also moving the edges of it, so it's harder for him to see the picture that you're drawing.
Okay.
And then the other piece of feedback that I'm getting from the horse is that still wasn't vigorous enough to really get his attention and motivate him to put the vigor into his own response.
All right, buddy. Here it comes. You ready? Here comes the vigor. You ready? Okay.
Good. Try to stay on your spot. And let's assess what happens now. He's suddenly further away, still totally paying attention to you, never once argued with you or laid his ears back or anything. So he's back out at that polite distance. But if we look at it from who is working harder, you're still doing more than he is, which is fine at this stage. But we're just going to keep noticing that, because that, as that changes, we want to notice it, because that's going to be a big win for you, right? So,
yep.
Just to make this easier for you, since we're probably going to repeat this a few more times, I want you to, we're going to do that again. The next time you do it, I want you to put all of that oomph and movement into your flag, like hold the handle of it and use the tool to create all of that noise and shape and movement instead of your body. That way you won't get dizzy. You won't accidentally move your spot. You'll get to watch the horse the whole time. And it's just more efficient for you. But we have a situation here. Before you try that, we have to change things, because right now it's being perfect and we don't want to practice something that's already happening, because then we're just drilling exercise and that doesn't make sense to horses. So what I'd like you to do is just go for a walk, and he'll either follow you or not. And if he follows you and comes in close, then we have an opportunity to do this again. If he never comes that close again, then we'll do other stuff. Also, by walking away and inviting him or offering him the opportunity to follow you, it tells us, did what you just did offend him, intrigue him, change something about how he thinks about you? The way he follows or not tells us about that. So why don't you just stop over there and kind of camp out on the fence, and let's see what he does. So what was really nice about that is as soon as you started walking away, he was like, okay, here I'm coming, you know? And then I think he was like, but it's a round pen, so I'll just let you work. That's how that looked to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Mickey's pretty sure that I'll get tired before he does.
So now what I want you to do is, from where you are, I want you to take that sort of vigor the level of vigor that you found that motivated him to move and give you more space, but you're going to take that over to where he's standing. You're going to now go occupy his spot, which means that you're going to use your flag so that if you get close enough to touch him, your flag touches him, not your body.
Okay, you want me to touch him with the flag?
If he's still there by the time you get there, I would say, yeah, it's fair game. So you're not going to try to go spank him, and you're still only going to do it 2 or 3 times before you stop and assess, which means starting at this distance, you'll probably activate yourself, take a few steps toward him using your flag, and then you'll have to stop about halfway to him, and then we'll assess. And if he's still standing there, you'll repeat it and then stop and assess. And if at any point he's within range, feel free to let your vigor touch him, because that's what looks like is going to happen. And I think it's important that when we do something and the horse goes, oh, it looks like you're going to come over and swirl right into my space and touch me, I want to make sure that actually happens so that he believes you.
Okay. Are we ready?
Anytime you're ready.
Okay.
And stop. I can't see him for the moment, but he looks like he's moved a little. And stopped again.
Yeah, he went about a quarter of the way around, as far away as from me as he can be.
Fine. So the goal here, and the intention in you should not be to get him going or make him do laps. It's just that you're going to go and you're going to just go occupy the spot where he is. So you could do that again. And remember how last time, the first time you did this, he wasn't so impressed with your level of energy?
Mm-hmm.
This one will have that same feeling to me. So increase your level of energy, both in how fast you step toward him and on how much you occupy your space as you're moving. But again, you'll only go about halfway to him and then screech to a halt and see what he's doing.
Okay.
And stop right there. Good. So tell me, how many times did you whack the ground?
6.
Okay. Next time, you're going to use all the oomph that you used in your 6, but you're going to only do it in 3.
Okay.
Which means it's going to something's got to be different to be able to put that into 3.
All right.
Let's just see what he does now. We don't need him to keep going. We don't need him to stop. Super. And he's looking over at you. Love it. So he's still connected. He's still listening. Right now, he's just not sure what it is that we're doing, which is totally reasonable because this is a little different than the usual.
Mm-hmm.
So with a different horse, I'd have a different tactic. But with him, because he's so comfortable, confident, he's kind of seems very blasé about this stuff. This time, I want you to go all the way to the fence on the other side of where he's standing and allow your flag to touch the fence with your last couple of movements.
Okay.
And if he's still there between you and the fence, then he'll be involved in that.
Yes, he will. All right.
To the fence. Yes. And relax. Just see what happens. Good. Interesting. He went a little further. He came a little closer to you. He's now looking at you like, that was different. Good. So I think we found something that caught his interest. And this is now where we're going to play a little bit and see if we can turn this into something that you can shape into your round penning type stuff. Okay?
Okay.
So let's do that again. From where you are, you're going to go occupy the space all the way to the fence where he is with as much energy as you think it's going to take to get the message across. And then when you get there, 100% neutral. Exactly a 180.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do almost exactly the same thing again, but I want to give you another detail that I think might help this process along. And that's that before you actually activate your body and movement, I want you to stand up and kind of get ready. And then I want you to try to imagine that your personal electromagnetic field, your personal energy that you emanate as an organism, is going to reach out with that same level of energy all the way across the round pen to where that fence is that you're going to aim for. And you're going to send that out first. And then you're going to go catch up with your energy that you've stretched out there. Sound doable?
Of course.
Okay. Whenever you're ready. So you did a little something different at the tail end there, which was sort of aimed at his butt instead of aimed at the fence. Are you aware that you did that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, just because he's kind of paying attention and interested, but he's still not sure what's going on, let's just double check that you can still walk up to him in a friendly manner and give him a rub. Because we don't want him to start thinking that you want him always far away from you, or that you take the flag with you, please.
How you doing, brother? Huh?
That's too late.
It's nothing personal. That's right.
Good.
All right.
So this was another diagnostic. If he was taking it personally, I don't think he would have stood there so calmly and reached out and met you with his. So good. We can check that off the list. He's not taking this personally. He's actually fine with it. So head back out to grab his flag. Oh, look, he's going with you. Excellent. So why don't you wind down to a stop and end up in the middle of the round pen? Excellent. So now we're going to take that feeling and that level of energy and kind of turning it on and shutting it off that you found was effective before in getting him to move a little bit. And we're going to actually put that into kind of a circling exercise that actually has direction. So you're actually going to ask to go rather than us just playing with energy and what does it take to get him to move his feet.
Okay.
So the first thing I would like to suggest is that it's best to ask a horse to circle when he's a little further away from you, because if he's this close and you ask him to go, there's a chance he'll blast right past you and bump into you. So it's not a super safe starting position. So the ideal thing to do would be to ask him to back up a couple steps, or you could use use your space exercise that we did that will result in him back up a couple steps. Either one would be fine.
Okay, go on now. Go on. Back up. Oh, boy.
Make sure you stay on your spot, otherwise it won't work. Yeah, great. So he's kind of pointed to your left a little bit, right? So why don't we choose that as our direction for the circle? And do you have something that really helps is if the horse knows kind of when the circle starts and when your cue starts and when your cue is over. So very much like when I'm speaking to you, I'm speaking in sentences that have a very clear pause at the end before my next sentence begins.
Okay.
So that's the kind of structure I was getting you to do before, where you think about what you're going to do first, you come alive and you do it, and then you pause. That's kind of like the nonverbal or the body language version of the sentence structure that we use to communicate. And having that clear beginning and ending makes it really much more recognizable as a piece of communication rather than like a run-on sentence, if that makes sense.
Yes,
My question to you before we do this is, do you have a cue that isn't really using pressure yet to tell him that it's a circle and to tell him which way to go?
I point.
Good.
So in this case,
go ahead.
So in this case, if we want to go the way he's already pointed, yeah, I'll just point him to the rail over there and follow that immediately with, the energetic cues out here that say, let's not just that way, but let's get going. So yeah, it's the same thing that I think they use for all the horses here. He knows what it means.
Well, yes, the problem is he knows what it means and he may or may not care to do it, right?
Well, there is that.
So what we don't want to do is get after him to try to make him do it, because he's used to that and he knows that he doesn't really have to if he doesn't feel like it. So instead, I'd like to have you make one small change to what you just described is how you would, and that's go ahead and when you're ready, you'll point to tell him where to go. Don't immediately follow it with pressure though. Give him a second or two or three of that nice invitation to go that way.
Okay.
And then I want you to have a lot of contrast in the next thing you do, which is going to be, you're going to explode into your going out there to take your energy to the fence on the other side of him.
Okay.
So the goal here, and we wouldn't do this quite so explosively with a horse who might get spooky about it, but I think he'll find it interesting because he's not worried at all. So you'll have a lot of contrast between this kind of opening, soft, inviting gesture when you point that way. And then all of a sudden, you're going to take your energy all the way to the fence and occupy that area with your fun and explosive energy.
Okay.
Okay.
First, let's get a little room here, buddy. Come on, need some room. Need some room.
Your spot. Great.
All right. What?
Look at him reading our minds already. Good. So even though yeah.
Go on now. Go on. Go on. Go on.
Do it. Yeah. Now hurry up and get back to the middle because that's your spot. And just relax there. That was almost perfect. I loved it. But to me, you put a lot more oomph into your verbal cue than into your body language or how much you moved. So can you take all the oomph you put in your verbal cue and put it into your explosion of bringing your body, your energy, and your whole space, including the space in front of you, behind you, to the right, to the left, and above you, bring all of that with you as you go to the fence.
Go on. Let's go.
And back to the middle.
Come on. Woo. Woo. Long way. My mistake.
That's okay. I would be specific about direction right now. Once he's more responsive, it's easier to steer him. When they're really slow and sticky, it's quite challenging to steer them. So my screen had like a delay, and I actually didn't get to see you do the beginning of that last send. So I'm sorry, I don't have feedback on that. But he's starting to have a little more, he's almost created some dust coming out of his hoof prints the last time. So this is good. And relax your arm because he's already going. So when he's already going, don't tell him to go unless you're going to tell him to go more. So let's pause in this time. Aha, yes. Put your arm down, go back down. Especially with a horse who already knows how to do this, if you leave your arm out there, it can actually slow him down because he feels like either you're blocking him in front or it's like you're telling him to do something he already knows, which is annoying for a horse who's been there, done that, and super smart. So say it and then be done with it.
What? The other way. What? What? Woo.
Say it and be done with it. It's done. It's over. It either worked or it didn't. And the best thing to do is to do it again. Oh, I'm seeing more energy in his walk, though. Oh. Look at all that dust. So your job is to continue to speak and be quiet and listen in between speaking. And to be quiet and listen is when you go back to the middle and just hang out and let him do his part.
And we're content to have him walking at this pace now?
I don't care if he's going fast or slow. I care that he went and he's being responsive and that he's listening. But I also care that you're not keeping him going. Because if you have to keep him going in here, when you ride, you're going to have to keep your legs on a lot, which is exhausting.
Why now?
Good. So just to recap, your job is to speak when you're speaking and be quiet and listen when you're not. Speak clearly, meaning go ahead and do the whole thing, whatever it is, when you are speaking to him, all the way to the fence.
Go.
Don't do it halfway.
Go on.
Yes. And that time, the oomph was in your voice and in your mind. It wasn't in your body and in your energy that you were sending out there. And he tells us that by his response.
Wow. Woo.
So, question for you, Ant. Are you, it looks to me like when you get out there, if you wanted to, you could give him a nice thump on the rump. He's still there within reach, right?
Yes, he is.
So if we were to think of this as kind of a game of tag, which I'm sure you've played, have you ever played tag with somebody who likes to be it?
Yes. Me.
Like you? Right. So it, which means you like to let someone else tag you, but you don't try really hard to tag the other people, do you? If you like to be it? Even if you could catch them, it's just not as much fun to be chased by somebody who doesn't want to catch you, is my point.
Okay.
So if he's still out there, that's kind of like him inviting you to tag him. So tag him.
Okay.
And at this point, that would be interesting and surprising to him, because thus far you've kind of avoided tagging him.
Yeah. You don't want me to whip him very hard, I assume.
With that,
or do you?
That rod and that flag, I don't think you could really hurt him on his rump with that. So obviously we don't want to hurt him. That's not the goal. But the goal is to be kind of honest in what you're doing. So if you look like all that energy is coming at him, I think all that energy should actually come at him. And that's the most honest way you can behave. If you bring it all over there and then tap him really lightly, I think in a sense that's dishonest, or it's tricky. And you don't want to be tricky. You want to be easy for him to read.
All right, Mickey. Here comes the big print edition. You ready? Go. Go on now. Go on. Go on. Go on.
And just to mix it up again, why don't you do it again before he stops? So invite him to go.
Go on now. Go on now.
And that was kind of a blah response. So you do it again. You did your.
All right, I can hit harder, brother. That's right. That's better. Now we're moving. Go on now.
Keeping him going. Hurry up.
Go on now. Go on now.
Good. Ooh, that was a better one.
Now we're cooking. That's right. Go on now.
Like, it's putting out the energy and you can relax. So this is a great for you to get really quiet in the middle, Ant, which will allow him to do the work and you to look like a rock star and relax a little bit.
Go on now. Go on. Woo.
Oh.
Nobody said stop. Damn, you're a beautiful horse.
Isn't he gorgeous?
Look at you go.
Now,
Yeah,
something. Turn your back on him and go walk over to the fence while he's moving nice like this. Go. And just hang out there for a minute. So I had you do that because I wanted to kind of take the pressure off and let him relax while he was doing his job, rather than waiting for him to slow down and then you having to do something about it.
Okay.
So just walking away like that is a really nice way to reward the kind of behavior that you like without having to add pressure or add something to the situation, which is nice because then it makes it really clear. You know, as soon as you start to add a good boy cue or tell him to stop before you reward him or something like that, now we're just adding more things to the mix, which can potentially make it, just less clear. So when I'm doing horse training kind of sessions, it's really important to me that whatever we're doing, that the horse understands it. And the best way I know to do that is to repeat kind of what we just got, which finally was him doing more of the work and doing it off of a lighter cue and you getting to relax his middle. So we got that one time. If we get that 3 times, more or less in a row, then to me, that's the horse telling us he gets it. So we got
Is there any reason to think about doing this in the other direction yet, or is this just stay with what we got?
I would suggest not doing it in the other direction, because if we're going to have him repeat something 3 times to prove that we have achieved understanding, if you change direction, now we're going to do it for the first time on the other side. And so we've lost our ability to repeat.
Back.
So you don't
Suzanne once pointed out, the first time I ever had him in here, Suzanne noticed that he came off the panels and came right up to me, and she asked if I knew why he was doing that. And I said, well, I'd like to think it's because he likes me. And she said, no, it's because if he's standing in the center with you, he doesn't have to do anything. So,
I think it could be either or a combo, you know, but let's not leave him out there too long, because we want him to remember the part of this exercise where he was being energetic. So,
come on now.
Yeah.
Come on now. Get it up. Move it out. Come on now. Get up. Come on. Keep it up.
Good. Back to the middle and rest. Give him some time, because I want to tell you the feedback that I saw. That first time you asked him to go, he kind of went blah, but you were kind of blah too. You didn't have a lot of contrast between the quiet time and the energetic time. And then when you touched him, it almost was like you pet his butt with a stick from where I'm watching. So we want to make sure he reads it clear and you're sending it out really clear. The best way to contrast.
I guess we're going to go the other way. Come on now.
That's fine.
Turn around. Come on. Turn around. That's it. Go on. That's it. Come on.
All right. Let's have a do-over. Good. Ooh, that's actually really nice. So I'd say rest in the middle for a solid 60 seconds. Because the level of responsiveness that last time was new. That was a new level of responsiveness, and we want to make sure that he gets a moment to go, I think maybe it might work. So now before he peters out and stops, you do something like walking away or asking him to come to you or something to get him to stop. Yeah. Great.
Usually if I just back up a step, he'll come to a stop. We take the pressure off. Damn, it's dusty in here.
In this contest, that's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
All right. So really cool. So we got our number 2. He was there with you. He shared your idea. You had a nice, responsive, energetic depart. It was even better than the first one, so I love that. Let's not wait too long, because we don't want him to forget what we're talking about. So head back into the middle and prepare yourself.
Go, come on. Come on. Woo. Come on now. Keep it up.
And before he slows down, you change it. Nice. Good.
Mm-hmm. Good job. Huh? Damn, you're fine.
So that last one wasn't quite as snappy as the second one, but that doesn't matter. What matters is you guys talked about some stuff in a little bit of a different way. You were able to harness your energy and use it in a different manner that was more meaningful to him. And you ended up sharing this idea of him being more responsive times. So we know that 1 wasn't a fluke and 2 wasn't a fluke. So you guys have actually achieved this together. And the end result is, look at him follow you. He's still totally connected. So he didn't have a problem with doing more of the work. I think maybe he just didn't know that that's what you wanted or what was expected, or he didn't know how to get there. And maybe you being a little more clear and decisive about it helped him get there. So we don't need to be perfect after this one session. So you have now sort of started a new level of responsiveness and communication between you.
Mm-hmm.
That you can carry on using just these fairly subtle changes to how you were doing it before to doing it like this. So I really love that.
Yeah. If I were going to guess what's going on in Mickey's head right now, as opposed to before, is that this might be the first time that he was sure that I wouldn't quit before he did what he knew he was really expected to do. I mean, he's too smart to not know what goes on in here. But he does know also, he's smart enough to know that if he just dawdles long enough, somebody will break a whip and give it up, you know. So I think this is the first time that I've done this with the right kind of intent, that we are going to do this. And what's interesting to me, fascinating really, is how you can do this kind of groundwork. And if anything, the horses are hooked on stronger than they've ever been, even though you've been running at them and slapping their ass with the whip, and it somehow increases the connection rather than getting in the way. So it's a fine thing, really. So.
I find that really interesting as well. And I think it's because you're speaking more clearly in a more recognizable way from him. And who doesn't like clear communication? It's so nicer to be around somebody that you know where they're at and you can understand what they're saying, rather than hang out with somebody who doesn't even seem sure what it is we're talking about. You know?
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of it.
Well, Suzanne once described Mickey as a very talented horse who knows it. And so I think he doesn't suffer. He doesn't suffer fools very gladly. So to the extent I have appeared that way to him, I think it has very definitely gotten in the way. So now, though, I think we've made a lot of progress here. So thank you for that.
You're so welcome. I think that's great. If I could leave you with one thought, or if you only remembered one thing from this session, I think it would probably be make sure you use contrast so he can tell when you're speaking and when you're not, when it begins and when it ends.
Okay. Yeah.
So
we'll do it.
Super. Loved it.
All
if
right.
you think of any other questions, feel free to post them in the chat feed, like not the live chat, but the feed below on the equine page, and I'll check that so that I can answer it. If you have a question, someone else probably has the same question. Same thing to the viewers watching this. If you have a question from this session, please post it, and I will to answer it.
My only thought right now, as far as question, is given what you've seen here, about how often do you think I should be doing this with him? Given that I do take him out in the trail and in the arena and other places, how often do you think you need to reinforce this sort of attention?
Well, I actually don't think of it as reinforcing it as much as feeding it and fostering it. So the reason this works, I believe, is because the horse is appreciating like a new level of clarity in your communication with him, and also a new level of expectation that he is capable of understanding you and is capable of taking responsibility for the so you kind of can't do this too much, except at some point it will work so well you will not need to practice it. It will just be something you guys have together. It'll just be part of the way you are, that when you point and open a door for him, he says, awesome, and he just goes, and you won't need to try to make it happen so much. But if I think what you're asking for is something more concrete, like, for example, if you did this as your warm-up before you went through a ride or did a session, say, every day for the next 4 to 7 days, I think you'd see huge changes in results in that time. And you can do it in less time than we did today. because of course,
Yeah.
in a session like this, it takes a lot of time for me to talk and explain, and you're experimenting, and then we have to chat. So you could probably do a session and get your 3 positive moments in, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 5 minutes even. One of the things I like about using that rule of 3 that the horse shows me 3 times that they understand is that the next time you come back, I'm pretty confident that he will remember all of this, and you can just pick up right here where you are. So you don't have to get here and then carry on. You guys can probably start here, because I'm confident he actually learned this and you guys actually achieved this together. So that's why I like to use that.
One thing we know about Mickey is that he has tremendous retention, and he does know how to do a lot of things that a lot of horses don't. So he's curious, and he retains the experiences he has. So I don't doubt that if we can get certain patterns understood here and use this as our warm-up, like you say, I really like the idea of doing this before going out in the trail, where there's places he doesn't really want to go, and what I need him to do is trust me and to some extent say okay, that I'm not going to leave it up to him, that it's my plan and we're going to do it together. So we can start right in here and doing that. So I really like this.
Great. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah. The only thing I might say in response to that last thing you said is, yes, you can do it as your warm up and do it regularly, but try not to let this become a drill or a predictable exercise. Always do it as a conversation that's fresh every day. So you're always reading his feedback. You're always working with what he brings to the pen on that day. You're not just doing it as a routine. That's really important.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. That makes a lot of sense to get a good feel, especially after we do this a few more times, get a good feel for what is kind of more or less normal for him, or for us, I should say. And on days when he's not feeling it or, got any kind of difficulties, then I should be able to see that. And that's a very good thing.
Yeah. Oh, and you'll just get better and better together.
All right, Mickey.
Okay, you guys have a good evening, and thanks for having me and for being such a great student. You guys are awesome.
Well, he's really a very good horse. All right. Thanks again. So long.
See ya.
You were good.